how is it, so one of the things about world ecology as a perspective is the relationship between nature and society. How is it that we are meant to study this relationship from the perspective?
Well, the first thing that I want to say is that when we think of world ecology, we want to think of this as an unfolding and emerging conversation that is at once intellectual, political, and organized to come to terms with the precise character of capitalism's crisis today, which of course is a climate crisis that joins rising concentrations of greenhouse gases with the climate class divide, with climate patriarchy, with climate apartheid. And what you can see in that description is that it is not a description of the world in terms of what we call a dualism. That is the positing of two separate essences of society, humans without nature, and nature, ecologies without humans. In fact, everything that humans do, even if we abstract other relations, which we should not, but everything that humans do from gatherer-hunter formations all the way to late capitalism and its imperialist superstructures is a way of organizing nature and depends on an extraordinary web of socio-ecological activities. And one of the critiques that world ecology offers to critical environmental studies, including political ecology, that critique says that it's in essence to view the world in terms of these two discrete essences of nature plus society is to gaze upon the world as a slaveholder would, as a bondholder would, as a banker would, as an imperialist would. And so what we are arguing about seeing the world in this dualist way is twofold. One is that it is analytically and epistemologically problematic. So it gives you an extraordinarily partial story if you are looking at social formation in one box and earth formation in another box. So there's an analytical problem, an intellectual problem. It's related to the political problem, which is dualist thinking is not just about philosophers. It's also about kings and conquerors and priests and bankers reshaping the world according to a logic of cheapening, which we'll get to in just a moment. But for now, let me say this, that the second moment of this criticism, this fundamental criticism of nature and society, it relates to the intellectual question, but is fundamentally a critique of ideology and says that for kings and conquerors and priests and accountants, as Raj Patel and I narrate in A History of the World in Seven Chief Things, they saw the world in terms of what would later be called the Civilizing Project. So if you were a possessor of money and a possessor of capital and a possessor of power, then you were civilized. And everyone else became part of nature with a big N, nature. And so nature and society became a way of not just gazing upon the world, but of ordering the world, of creating the world in the interests of the emergent world bourgeoisie after 1492, and especially in its imperialist forms. As I like to point out that every time an imperialist power arrives on the shores of a new land, with the flick of a pen and a religious ceremony, all of a sudden everyone is declared lazy, savage, or as Truman would do in 1949, undeveloped. So this second category of criticism, this ideological critique, it understands that nature and society are operative forces, ideological forces in shaping the world. They are real abstractions that serve the ruling classes of their successive eras. And so when we challenge the conventional narrative, we are doing so not only for intellectual grounds, which would be sufficient on its own, but also to pinpoint that the creation of nature with an uppercase N involved the cultural and ethnic and gender cleansing of civilization and the relocation of women, nature, and colonies, to quote Maria Mies, into the realm of nature with an uppercase N. And that, in short, is fundamental to world ecology. And when people might comment, they say, well, of course, nature and society are real and have to be taken account of. We agree. We point out that language connects to the actual exercise of geocultural power in making the world and in the present drive towards planetary crisis.